What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, Nintendo had their Indie World event showcasing a ton of indie games, shadow dropping quite a few of them actually. Sometimes like one or two shadow drops, there's a whole bunch of them popping up on the eShop and even launching a sale alongside of these games. We're gonna go over all of that today, as well as which game I've been playing already and I'm really enjoying. Also, we get to talk about Oculus and Facebook and how a bunch of people who maybe have picked up an Oculus headset recently found out that they will need to be using their Facebook account or they won't get the full functionality out of that headset, and that's gone over well online so far. And I wanted to go over an analyst prediction between which system will sell the most this holiday, the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation 5. And you know what? Their pick may surprise you a little bit. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're going to start today with Crysis Remastered because this was such a weird situation, right? It's one of the few games where it's announced for all platforms. It seems pretty straightforward, and then it gets delayed on the Xbox, PlayStation 4, but the Switch version comes out on time. It was all over the place, right? Well, it turns out you may be able to play it pretty soon, and this is where things continue to get more confusing. They might shadow drop this game. That's because apparently PlayStation Access told us that it's coming out this Friday in a video, where they'll do videos where they're like, oh, here are the releases for this week. One of those apparently is Crysis Remastered on the 21st, that being this Friday. We haven't heard anything from Crytek yet as of this recording. They could announce it today that it is showing up on Friday. I also wondered if maybe they would just shadow drop it on Friday, like they announced that it's just out now. And then, of course, we get to see what they spent the extra time doing, because when they first showed it, they had some backlash. People were confused as to why the original one to them looked better than this remaster of it. It was very strange to see that, but here's hoping they took the time to make it look better, I guess. It doesn't even feel like there's been enough time to do that, but they wanted to delay it to see if they could work on it. So I guess, according to PlayStation Access, we'll find out this Friday. Oh, and we did have another game delayed. We've been seeing this now, right, where games are just kind of getting announced as delayed, Halo Infinite being probably the biggest one so far this year, but this game was going to be coming out around the time of the PlayStation 5 launch. I think it was even talked about as a launch title, or at least within the launch window, and that's Deathloop. They put this statement out here with the first sentence being very cut and dry, simply saying, we've made the decision to move the launch date of Deathloop to Q2 2021. Now that means that it could fall in, I guess, to summer then. So it could end up being a 5 to 6 month delay from when it was originally slated. And when they showed the game, I thought it looked interesting. They showed some gameplay, but I still wasn't 100% sure as to what the game was completely. And I guess it turns out that they were also struggling with remote work and the situation brought on by COVID currently, as they do describe in like a longer passage here. But we'll see what comes out of this here. Maybe Deathloop does get some extra shine and polish, as they say they're going to try to do. And as long as they launch it, I think in the first year of a system's life, generally it's still new enough to people to where they want to check out the newest game on it and don't think to pass on a game necessarily that maybe they could see something cool from their shiny new system, right? So I don't think this will go out too far though. Like I said, 5 to 6 months seems about the delay that they're talking about here. Also, there's a new documentary out for Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and I checked it out. It launched yesterday. They just released it. I rented it and I watched it. It was a pretty good documentary, but there was something in there that caught my ear a bit, and it was Tony Hawk mentioning how he was going around, he was pitching the game to try to help out because he was Tony Hawk, of course, so you might as well send him to pitch a skateboarding game. Well, he walks in and he pitches it to Nintendo, and they turned down Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which is really weird to think about. What if they had said yes, and here's Tony Hawk Pro Skater being created with Nintendo Publishing, or maybe helping to develop with Neversoft? Yeah, what kind of world would that be like now, where Tony Hawk Pro Skater could have been like locked to the Nintendo 64 and then the GameCube and all? Think about that for a minute there. The documentary is very good. It's called Pretending I'm a Superman, of course, playing off probably the most popular lyrics in the entire series. It was about an hour and 15 minutes. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm a big Tony Hawk Pro Skater fan, so it made sense for me to check it out. But I think it was like $5 to rent it. It's on YouTube, Amazon, and all those places. So if you're a fan and you're waiting for the remake or remaster, whatever you want to call it, coming up here soon, you might want to give that one a look. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start right away with the Indie World event from Nintendo. So we're just going to go through the different games that were announced here, starting right away with Hades, which that is coming out of early access fall 2020, by the way, on PC as well, it seems, but it will be launching on the Switch, and it will support cross-save for your Steam account and the Switch. I like that games are leveraging that. I think that's really, really good. That game, by the way, has an overwhelmingly positive review on Steam, and that's an early access game. I keep looking at it, and I think I am going to go ahead and grab it when it does launch on the Switch to check that one out. And then we have Hypnospace Outlaw, that's coming out August 27th, has a free demo already up on the eShop. Then we have Spiritfarer, that is also already out on the eShop. We have Garden Story, that's coming to the Switch in 2021. Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero, that's going to be an interesting release, because from what I remember, that game has issues on like every system it's come out on. It's like on the Xbox, the PlayStation, even on PC, it has some weird issues, I think, with drivers. That's coming out next year on the Switch. I will be curious to see how that one works out. Then we have Takashi and Hiroshi. That looked kind of neat as well. That one is already out. It's like a 2D action adventure RPG side scroller. Then Raji and Ancient Epic. I'm going to come back to that one. That one is already out. That is the game I've been playing and enjoying so far. Bear and Breakfast, that's out 2021. And then we had A Short Hike, Card Shark, that's out 2021. And then Torchlight 3, that one was pretty cool to see there. It is at early access. I believe it launched earlier this year, but if you've played any of the other Torchlights, you already know what to expect there. Cool to see that one, though, get announced at this indie show. Manifold Garden, that one's already out now. Evergate, and then a whole bunch of other games that were kind of shown in a quick, like, sizzle reel sort of thing. Haven, that's 2020. Going Under, that's September 24th. The Red Lantern, fall 2020. Unrailed, September 23rd, with a demo already available. Struggling, August 27th. Inmost, August 21st. She Dreams Elsewhere, early 2021. Grindstone, fall 2020. And then Goner 2, fall 2020. And then they finished up with an update for Untitled Goose Game coming out September 23rd, and it adds multiplayer co-op. No, seriously, two people can play this game at the same time as that jerk of a goose kind of runs around and messes everything up. That's a fun update, right? That's a pretty cool way even to end it, because while Untitled Goose Game was kind of a meme online, it was still very popular and a lot of people had fun with it. So that's a fun way to end it. And you know what? I think it was a pretty good indie event overall. Now, as for Raji, I like that game so far. I've played about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it has reminded me of kind of like top-down Prince of Persia with the combat and some of the platforming. Now, I still have a ways to go, I think, at it, because it does feel like the tutorial lasts quite a bit in this, where they're kind of going over all of the moves and some of the upgrades and things you can do in the game. So I'm still playing through it, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it on the podcast this weekend, but it caught my eye immediately when I was seeing the Indie World event, and I wanted to go grab it. It was really cool that it was already out, so let's go over to some of the sales that are out now as well. Now, if you head over to the sales and deals page on Nintendo.com, it's not just the games that were in this event for like the indies that are on sale, because you have things like Streets of Rage 4, for example, marked down, Ori and the Blind Forest, which is an obvious pickup there. But then you also have like Dead Cells marked down to $15, and those games that came out, a lot of them were also marked down. Raji, for example, was marked down. Takashi and Hiroshi were marked down. Evergate's marked down. Manifold Garden, and this is a great way, I think, to help promote these indie games after they're announced. You announce them, you shadow drop them, and you shadow drop them on sale. A lot of these indie developers are doing all kinds of crazy stuff on the eShop to get noticed. Just launching with a discount for some, I mean, that might be enough to kind of get someone over the edge to be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I will try this indie game out, right? Because it might mark it down to like $7 or $8, and it's like, well, I thought it looked pretty cool, and it's not a massive risk really for me to buy this. It's not like you're buying like a $60 game or something, right? So that's a cool way, I think, to go about it, and it immediately puts you on the sales page. So overall, for an Indie World event, like, you go into it with expectation. Like, I'm not like, oh, we're seeing the next Smash character right now. We're gonna see some interesting and creative games from smaller developers, And we saw that. There was a lot of, I'd say a lot of interesting ideas all bundled up here and a lot of different ideas. So it was pretty cool to see. And I think it's definitely worth, for me anyway, check out Raji. That's so far been the one that I've wanted to play first anyway, but I'm gonna check out quite a few of them. Next up, let's talk about an interesting prediction that's been made by the Ace Research Institute when it comes to which system will sell more this holiday, the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation 5. And I've seen this come up at times. When the PlayStation 5 shows up, for example, it's gonna knock the Switch off of that NPD #1 spot that it's held for a long time. I mean, it's been like years now. It's been a long time the Switch has been at the top, and we've pretty much accepted that now. Whenever the NPD results come out, we're like, oh yeah, the Switch was probably #1 most likely, and then we look at the games to figure out where everyone was. But check this out. This was a statement and a full report that was released with the biggest line being, Nintendo's business performance will continue to be strong in the second quarter, and it seems that Switch, which is significantly inferior in performance, will overwhelm the PS5 the Christmas season. So there's a few things here. One, it really depends on how we're tracking this, because remember the NPD will track with dollar spend as opposed to number of units sold. The PS5 very likely will be at least $500. Say at least, because you never know, it could be more than that. So naturally, if you sell one PS5, that's like, what, 2.5 Nintendo Switch Lites. Like, you see what I'm getting at here? So sure, units sold might be something that the Switch will take from that, but I could see the PS5, like it could be that situation where the NPD reports like, oh, the PS5 had brought in more revenue, but the Switch sold more units. It does seem like the Ace Research Institute is talking about how, oh no, the Switch is just gonna outsell it completely. So to come down to pricing is the biggest one, and any other launch titles alongside of it outside of Spider-Man, because they just lost Deathloop, right? Now, Call of Duty, I assume, will be one of those. You'll have the Madden, of course, and other sports titles. But still, if Nintendo comes out and does announce something like a Mario 3D Collection and Animal Crossing continues to roll, yeah, I think the Switch could outsell the PlayStation 5 this holiday. I think it will happen in Japan. Like, I think that's pretty cut and dry there. The big one will be in the United States and, of course, in Europe to see how things go there. But something interesting to consider, and let me know down below which one you think will sell better this holiday. I also like that no one's even bringing up the Xbox anymore when it comes to this. I think a lot of it has to do with just, I mean, in general, not even just from this institute, just in general, probably because Halo Infinite got pushed, and Phil Spencer's already said that they don't really care about outselling other consoles like the PlayStation 5. Next up, let's talk about Oculus and Facebook. This is gonna be pretty important if you're somebody that doesn't use Facebook but has an Oculus headset, okay? Especially if you don't have a Facebook account at all. You're gonna wanna check this out to see where you're gonna go from here. I make a Facebook account? I don't know. People, of course, have become very unsure of Facebook, we'll say that, recently, especially when it comes to handling of information and all of this, right? So let's go over to the update that Oculus posted online. Everyone using an Oculus device for the first time will need to log in with a Facebook account. If you're an existing user and already have an Oculus account, you'll have the option to log in with Facebook and merge your Oculus and Facebook accounts. If you're an existing user and choose not to merge your accounts, you can continue using your Oculus account for 2 years. After January 1st, 2023, we will end support for Oculus accounts. If you choose not to merge your accounts at that time, you can continue using your device, but full functionality will require a Facebook account. And I guess this shouldn't be too surprising overall. I figured we would eventually get to this point, right? It's been a slow absorption, I guess, of Oculus into Facebook. It just has. Facebook, of course, with Facebook gaming and all this stuff, they want to put everything together, and they figure, oh, we'll just tie everyone into Facebook itself, one account, and then naturally information, data, all that stuff, right? That's a whole topic on its own with Facebook. But this did not make people very happy online, especially if you're someone who doesn't really want to use Facebook or have a Facebook account. Like, I'm not really a big Facebook user at all. I don't know. I just never really got into it, so I just kind of pass on it. And to really be like, oh, I have to sign in with a Facebook account, I mean, I guess it's not the biggest deal in the world to make one if you have an Oculus headset, and it's either don't use it or make an account. But there are people who were not too happy with this one. And if you buy an Oculus headset, say this Christmas, you're going to have to use a Facebook account. Now, the thing that's really strange to me is when Facebook picked up Oculus, that was something that seemed to come up. It's like, oh boy, here we go. We're going to have to be using our Facebook accounts with Oculus. And it's a whole thing now, isn't it? Because if you go back and look at like the original Reddit thread when this was happening, Palmer Luckey actually posted. Now, he's not with them anymore, right, Oculus? They split in 2017. But look at this post from 6 years ago, where obviously he saw this coming, or at least the idea coming. And he himself says, I guarantee that you won't need to log into your Facebook account every time you want to use the Oculus Rift. Yeah, because the post right below that asks if they're in position, Palmer Luckey, to promise something like that. Might have been then, maybe. Not after 2017 though, so yeah, it's, again, I think they did this so slowly to where it wasn't as noticeable until they flipped the switch like they're doing now. At least, I guess you can still use it over the next few years until 2023. And then it's all Facebook from there for Oculus users. And in our last bit of news, let's go back to The Legend of Zelda. We, of course, talked about this the other day when Amazon decided to list Skyward Sword for the Switch. That got people pretty excited, and I did mention that Breath of the Wild 2 could be a good way to cap off the Zelda anniversary next year, launching that in the holiday season. Well, it looks like we have a listing for a collector's edition for Breath of the Wild 2. Interesting website, by the way, that listed this. I'll explain why in a second here. You can see the listing right here. It does say 2020. I throw that out the window. That's a placeholder date. I believe Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year myself personally, but the reason I said this website is so interesting is because this is WTNT. That's the French retailer website that listed Witcher 3, and no one else really thought that was, like, no one believed it, right? 'Cause it's like, oh, Witcher 3 on the Switch. They can't do that, and now you can play Witcher 3 on your Switch with cross-save and everything. It's crazy out here, right? It's a crazy world. So Breath of the Wild 2 will obviously have a collector's edition. That seems pretty straightforward, but it's not coming out in 2020. I mean, it's August. Like, that's a game they want to build up. Makes a ton of sense for the anniversary next year. What they need to do, though, is they need a system. You gotta do a Legend of Zelda system to go alongside Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, I'll pick that up, right? I mean, I think a lot of people will, right? Can you imagine like a full Switch with like some etchings on the back, and then they have gold Joy-Cons and all? That'd be pretty cool, right? So yes, they need to do that. Do the collector's edition, do the regular edition, but make sure you do that system for the anniversary next year. They have to. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Lude saying, I'm getting the flight sim right now. I have an XFX RX 588 gigabytes, and the minimum is an RX 570. So good news there. The video card should be a bit cheaper this holiday. Now, of course, Ampere is going to be unveiled pretty soon, start of September, and more leaks coming out about AMD, probably doing something around that time, maybe slightly later into September, which means things like the 5700 or the 5700 XT, or even the current RTX cards could drop in price pretty well. I think the AMD side will drop a bit more when they start showing off Big Navi, as that is a jump that people have been waiting for. But to you, that would be a pretty good upgrade to from an RX 580. And that's kind of where I would sit if you're more on like the budget side of things. I mean, if you want to save up and go big and get Ampere or get the next Big Navi card, you can do that. But I think when you really get in there and get those cards at budget prices, and they're still playing games at like 60 frames per second, that's the biggest win to me. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Well, there's Nintendo's Indie World presentation. What'd you think about it? Did you pick up any of the games there, especially since they were all on sale? Let me know what you thought about that overall, though. And what do you think about this Oculus Facebook situation? Are you someone who doesn't really mind because you have a Facebook, or are you someone who bought an Oculus, you're having fun with it, now you find out you need to get a Facebook account? Oh, and Switch or PS5 this holiday? The analyst has spoken, but which one do you think will sell more? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.